Here to bring you guys this week's inspiration, education, and tips to help you guys on your fitness journey. And today's episode, I want to talk a little bit about overeating, but more primarily, I want to talk about undereating because I do think that in a lot of ways, undereating is what ends up leading us to overeat. And I'm going to make sure I have my notes pulled up for myself as well, because it just kind of helps me stay organized. Because I thought that this topic it's something that I've talked about a little bit on my Instagram handle, on Facebook. And I do obviously put out some reels on that, but I've never actually taken some time to actually dive into it completely. And I wanted to take this episode to do that. So if you get any value out of this episode or any of my episodes, as always, guys, please make sure you guys let me know. I want to know that you're listening. I actually just found out that by giving me some 5-star ratings and reviews, it actually helps bump my podcast up so I can get more people to see it, more people to view it. And I would love to get this content out to more people if you actually find value in it. So let me know if you can give me a review. That'd be awesome. I do this for free. I do this for fun. And I do this to hopefully help you guys on your fitness journey. So without further ado, let's kind of roll right into this. So the first thing I want to talk about is, I guess in general, and I don't really have like a complete order to what I'm going to talk about today, but I want to kind of make sure I cover all the basics. Is number one is there's a difference between unintentional versus intentional undereating versus overeating, right? So intentionally overeating is like where, maybe where it's Thanksgiving dinner and, we are like eating past the point of full because we enjoy that food so much. And every once in a while, like it's okay to feel that way, right? We're like, oh, I ate a little too much at dinner time. Probably should have stopped after that second helping of, whatever, the pudding pie. But that's going to happen from occasion. We know when we're doing those things, usually we're intentionally doing them. It's knowing that the unintentional stuff is actually what's more important to understand. And this usually comes from people not understanding the difference between volume of food and the calorie density of food. And this is where macro tracking and calorie tracking can come into huge play for you guys to be able to navigate overeating, because a lot of times we might not feel like we're eating a whole bunch. It's not a big portion, but because it's so dense in calories, we are unintentionally overeating. And this is very common in the world of people like, I don't eat anything and I gain weight. And it's because they're not really eating a whole bunch, but what they're eating is very calorie dense and it ends up taking up a lot of their calories. By the way, if you're watching me on YouTube right now, I am drinking Diet Dr. Pepper, the GOAT, my favorite. If you ever want to know what my favorite go-to is, it is A&W zero sugar root beer. It's a great little snack after my lunch. So that was the other thing. And the same thing on the flip side, guys, with the undereating versus overeating, intentional versus unintentional undereating, right? So intentional undereating is chronically dieting on purpose, right? We're always putting ourselves into a calorie deficit. We're afraid to eat too much, so we're chronically undereating. Versus unintentional undereating is like where we don't really realize that, maybe we're like borderline, like we think we eat enough, but we're just not aware of the fact that our habits have us now maintaining our weight on a lower number of calories. And our body has now adapted to that changes, which is one of the things we're going to talk about today. So there are also different types of undereating and overeating. Now, you can overeat or undereat calories in general. So like I said, you're just undereating, by nature, you're not realizing you're doing it, or you're realizing you're doing it, or you're overeating by nature, calorie wise. So this is just our general calorie intake is not in line with calorie maintenance. However, we can also unintentionally or intentionally undereat specific nutrients. And this is also important. So you might be getting enough calories, but you're not getting enough protein, or you might be getting enough calories, but you're getting not enough carbohydrates. All of this stuff matters in terms of understanding what needs to be optimized. And so before I go into the science, I'm going to talk to you guys first about that. The best way for you guys to figure out how to feel your best, how to look your best, how to achieve the goals you want is to honestly take time to optimize not just calories, macros, and micros. When you optimize all those through 3 things and your lifestyle outside of nutrition is in line with your goals, AKA you're training enough, you're sleeping enough, you're not stressing too much, now you have the tools to really be able to kind of get things going. And I'm going to record a whole podcast on that as well. Actually, you know what? Actually, I don't need to record a whole podcast on that. Before we go into this, let me just take a second. All right. You guys want to get results? Let's just talk about this for a second. Before we even go into this undereating versus overeating thing, optimizing for results. I don't need a whole podcast on this. I can talk about it right now. Okay. Dial in the calories and the protein. You got that mastered? Dial in the macros. You got that macro mastered? Dial in the micros. You got that mastered? Okay, great. What's your lifestyle look like? Are you sleeping enough? What does that look like? Okay. Are you getting 7 to 9 hours? How's your training? Are you consistently training 4 to 6 days a week? Are you hitting the weights? Are you getting enough aerobic conditioning? How about your daily activity? Like, these are all the things to navigate. So if you want to optimize, I don't need to actually go into each and every one of those things. I want you guys to understand that optimizing your body composition is not just one thing. You've got to check all the things off the boxes. And I actually have a fat loss checklist. I'm going to send it out. I'll put it in the show notes today. So optimizing for your results is important. And it's optimizing your life, not just your nutrition. So now that I said that, and I probably will still record a whole episode on it because I feel like I could just talk about it forever. This is the shit that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about you guys changing your life. And I know that we all have this whole, like, maybe one place that we're really comfortable working. So for instance, CrossFitters, they're so consistent in the gym. They don't like missing class. They're always going to be in the gym, but they also don't like doing the other things, right? They like going to class. They like getting their heart rate up. Not a lot of them like doing the accessory work or the skill work. Some of them like doing the skill work, but they only like to do the skill work on the things that they're good at, so it's just knowing that there's always going to be this plug and play. So you got to navigate not just one thing, all areas to get the body that you want. All right. So as I was saying, the different types of under eating and overeating, we can be under eating specific nutrients and or not getting enough micronutrients, not getting enough macronutrients, whatever that might look like. So the first thing you want to do is optimize, making sure that you're getting in enough protein, carbs, and fats, and also enough of the micronutrients that your body needs from vitamins and minerals. And that just takes time. Obviously, working with a coach is probably the best way to do this. But you can also do your own education or join my Facebook group where I have some free stuff in there for you guys to take a look at. But starting there first. All right, now let's identify some of the reasons or some of the signs that you might be under eating. Okay. Some of these are going to be more common or more, more apparent to you guys. I shouldn't say more common, but that you're going to recognize more than others. Some of them you guys might not even realize have to do with under eating or overeating. You might look at yourself like you're the problem, and it's really not you that's the problem. Okay, so a couple of the things that you're probably going to notice off the bat is obviously low energy levels. So you might be relying on caffeine a lot. You might have disrupted sleep. Yes or no, maybe. So I just rant. Oh my God, I'm so corny. So you might have disrupted sleep. You might have some mood swings, AKA anxiety, depression, maybe a hard time handling stress. You might find that you have times in your day where you're having a hard time concentrating. Those are all kind of signs that you might be under eating. And a lot of people maybe just kind of put them off on the backseat burner and they don't really do anything about it. They don't really think too much about it. And maybe they don't correlate the two together or think that one causes the other. They just kind of know that they don't feel their best. And this is the less obvious, is that you just walk around feeling a little bit blah, like you're never really excited about anything. Maybe there was a time you can remember you had a lot of energy and you're not really quite sure where that actually changed, so whatever changed in your life, a lot of people tend to blame it on aging. They tend to blame it on hormones. They tend to blame it on, just being busy and not getting enough sleep. But sometimes it's not always cause and effect. It's kind of like it all is this, circle that's all entwined. And sometimes fixing the nutrition might help you sleep better. It might help you handle stress better at work. It might help you, change those mood swings and energy slumps, so those are all important things to recognize, is that those are all signs that you might be under eating. This is also why optimizing by making sure that you are keeping a food journal, like taking a look at where things are at and being able to go from there. Some other signs that you are under eating is that you maybe are going to the gym regularly and you're, busting your ass, but like you're just not making the gains that you thought you should be making. You're not progressing. You're bonking in workouts. Maybe you're not getting the strength gains you want. Maybe you're not seeing any changes physically and you're just not really sure why. You're putting in all the work. This is important for you guys to realize that a lot of people often might be getting enough calories, especially if their weight isn't changing, but they're not getting the right type of macronutrients to optimize their performance in the gym. This is where under eating is situational. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. Other things that are a little bit less apparent is more injury prone. Guys, when you're under eating, you are more prone to injury, especially if you're under eating protein. You might have poor recovery, so you're not really able to recover as quickly. You can't handle the volume like you want to be able to handle. it's not you that's the problem. It's often that you're just not getting enough of the calories or the right types of calories. These are some things that people don't really think about that are related to undereating, because they just think that this is, they don't realize this is usually the unintentional undereaters, or maybe it is the ones that don't have their priorities right, which is where I can talk to you guys a whole other tangent is about the difference between, what is our priority with our nutrition? Are we prioritizing aesthetics right now? Are we trying to get leaner? Are we prioritizing our performance right now? Are we trying to get stronger and fitter? Or are we prioritizing our health? Because you have to know which end of the spectrum you fall on. And if you are intentionally in a calorie deficit to lose weight, you are intentionally under eating. So you're going to expect some of these things. However, the goal really is that we should not see them at a detriment to our performance, which is where knowing that you have a periodized approach and having a coach that's teaching you guys how to do it the right way is probably more effective than trying to do it on your own. So we want to make sure we should always be, I always tell my clients that I want them to feel better in their workouts, not worse, so during a fat loss phase, my goal is always to maintain strength. But a lot of my clients are also, I would call them somewhat new. So and I say new because they're probably been training less than 3 to 4 years of, consistency. So that's still pretty new in my life, in my world. But they're probably not going to see as much detriment on their strength gains because I'm fueling them enough, but they will see that their performance goes up in other areas if they're losing body fat, if that makes sense. So, meaning their cardio is going to get easier. So, lack of focus, you're just having a hard time thinking, you're just not really able to concentrate like you normally can. Brain fog, just waking up feeling puffy in the morning and feeling puffy all day, just kind of bloated and blah. Digestive stuff is another sign that you might be under eating, just like having a sluggish gut or your gut's like very inconsistent is all signs that you might be under eating. And it's hard because, like I said, people don't really know what comes first, right? And this is where I'm going to go into the main one that I'm going to talk about today, is that you're not making progress in your fat loss goals. So, I think that people tend to focus on, what am I doing wrong? Well, the main thing you're doing wrong is you're not eating enough, which usually comes down to not really understanding nutrition and only understanding that like you have a goal of weight loss and you don't know how to make that happen while making sure you're optimizing everything else. So those are some things to think about. And the last one I just talked about was the fat loss one. Now I'm going to go ahead and go off at a little bit of a tangent because this is important for people to understand, is when you undereat, you are going to lose weight. Okay. I struggled with anorexia for 6 years of my life. And if you want to hear more about that, I have an episode that I talk about it. And I was chronically under eating, but I was also losing weight. My body was adapting to those calories, but in a state of anorexia, I didn't care. So I brought my calories down as much as 200 calories a day. And I was living on that all day. And I was also doing entirely too much movement in my day. So I know that it is impossible to be under eating and not losing weight. However, what people don't understand is, like I said, I was down to 200 calories a day because my body had adapted that much. Okay. So you have to realize that you can lose weight. It's that when you are chronically under eating, the amount of calories that you have to drop to lose weight is probably not ideal for you to maintain on. And this is where understanding the importance of a reverse diet and getting your body optimized is more important for your goals than constantly dropping calories. But we all want results today. Okay. So this is where people have to understand that you are not unable to lose weight. It's that you have to ask yourself, am I able to sustain the amount of calories I need to lose weight? Or do I need to work on the opposite, which is optimizing and then cutting back down? And this is also where you have to look at those other factors of your life. So if somebody's only eating 1,100 calories a day and they're not working out and they're not moving throughout their day, I can probably say, hey, let's work on optimizing. Let's get you maybe, walking 5 to 10,000 steps a day. Let's get you working out 3 times a week. Let's get you optimizing by eating more nutrient dense foods and bringing calories up a little bit. Now we've got all that stuff consistent, and now they can eat more calories because now they're moving more. And now I can keep those move habits and drop calories, and hopefully they'll start to lose weight, right? So there's a whole process to this that people don't really understand. So, but the under eating stuff is important. Now, what are some of obviously the complications from under eating? Well, I think some of the main ones I already talked about is the adaptations that happen, and the metabolism regulates everything. So we're going to see changes in our hormones, our gut health, our insulin factors. Like there's so many things that change our cognitive function, our all of these signs are also complications. And if people recognize that under eating is just as bad as overeating in what it does to our bodies, it would be such an eye-opening experience for them to learn that it's okay to spend time optimizing calorie intake just to be at my best, even if my best isn't the body composition that I want right now, but optimizing how I feel my best, because now I can achieve the best body composition. So hopefully that was helpful. Now, on the flip side of things, overeating is a little bit more complicated because overeating typically doesn't give us a lot of the negative side effects. It will give us some. Um, I know what I forgot to talk about, and I'm going to talk about this before I go into overeating, is some of the specific signals that you guys are going to get. So signs and signals. When you guys are under eating, I think this is where like people get stressed out about willpower. Hunger and cravings, guys. These are big ones. I can't believe I didn't even go down this route. Hunger and cravings. Okay. If you have very inconsistent hunger and craving cues, this is a huge one. If you're thinking about food all the time, I mentioned being anorexic. Guys, when I was anorexic, I could not stop thinking about food. I was cooking all the time, but I wasn't eating it. I was cooking for everybody else. You are constantly consumed by food when you're under eating because your body's always looking for nutrients. So it starts to think about it all the time. So if you're finding it hard to stay consistent with your diet, you're likely eating too little. On the flip side of things, now I'm going to go into overeating because those things are also a sign of overeating. If you have an insatiable appetite and you're always willing to eat, like that's also a sign that you're overeating. Your leptin levels, your ghrelin levels, all of those things are probably out of whack. Those are your hormones that help regulate hunger and satiety. So you might have some trouble sleeping if you're overeating, but you're not going to notice these things as much. I think the main things that you're going to notice if you're overeating is that you probably honestly have pretty good performance for the most part, but you might be going to the bathroom a little bit too much. So you might have some more gut movements. You definitely probably will feel a little bit sluggish. Your body is obviously in a state of storage, so it's actually working to store things. I think the main one is the weight gain, guys. Weight is going to be the easiest one, is you're going to notice that. Um, the main thing with overeating though is actually asking yourself is it a conscious or an unconscious decision? Like I said, I think the conscious decisions are going to be the easier ones to notice. We're going to feel that full feeling in our belly all the time. If we are unconsciously overeating, we probably won't feel that all the time. Now, here's some things to consider if you guys are trying to stop overeating, and some things that you guys should be looking for is if you don't want to be overeating, one is you should definitely stick to a structured schedule. And if you're always eating whenever you're hungry, then you're actually doing yourself a disservice. You should actually be able to allow yourself to feel hunger and not feel like you have to act on it right away. If you are impulsively eating, then that's also a part of the problem with overeating, is that you're like, I'm hungry. Oh, I'm going to eat this now. Or if it's, 30 minutes before dinner is going to be done and you're like, I got to eat something right now before dinner. Like those are the things that people don't realize are causing them to overeat, but they actually just do them because they think it's natural, that they don't feel comfortable being hungry. We should all be comfortable being slightly hungry. We should be slightly hungry between meals. We should always be kind of like, oh, I could eat something, but I don't really need to right now. That's kind of the sweet spot with understanding intuition on our hunger and satiety cues. And I think that people tend to either ignore them altogether or they act them too often. And that's how you guys find that sweet spot with the overeating thing. Some of the common reasons for overeating, and actually in fact undereating, is just not making nutrition a priority. And for overeaters, it's like the mindless eating. So they're like eating things, they're not planning their food, they're just munching on things throughout the day because they don't have time to sit and eat. But undereaters tend to do this as well because they tend to go long periods of time and not eating. And so it's just never making it a priority to have nutrition as a part of your routine in your day. Guys, what you feed your body is the most important thing, is it's what keeps you alive besides water. So hopefully this episode was helpful for you guys. I'm going to kind of recap some things. Signs that you guys might be under eating. Okay. Trouble sleeping, not getting enough shut eye, or waking up in the middle of the night and not really knowing why you can't fall back asleep, that tired and wired feeling. Poor performance in the gym and lack of strength gains. You're just not seeing the performance that you're really chasing, even though you're putting in all the work. getting a lot of mood swings throughout the day, having a hard time handling stress, having energy slumps throughout the day, or needing to really rely on a lot of caffeine. Maybe you're having a hard time focusing, your brain's foggy, you're feeling puffy throughout your day. And then obviously things like, the injury prone stuff, that you're having poor recovery. And then obviously thinking about food all the time, hunger cravings, and all of that good stuff that comes along with it. So hopefully this episode was helpful for you guys. If you guys think you are under eating, you think you're overeating, not really sure where you should be starting, shoot me a message, shoot me a DM. I do free assessments, and I would love to be able to help you guys get started in taking a more effective approach at achieving the goals you have for yourself. So have a great day. Talk to you all soon.